Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, a quick Baltimore Metro market snapshot and home buying tips for anyone who is just starting out or resuming their search in this crazy market. So this is Erin Lokhandwala, and I am joined by Christina Vicaria, my agent, and we are representing Lokhandwala Realty. And I think we are ready to go. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll get the presentation underway. We appreciate everyone, all of your time for joining us. Hey. And Christina, can we see the market reports?
I can see your screen.
Okay, we are ready. And again, I'm Erin Lokhandwala, attorney and broker of Lokhandwala Realty. We're based in Cockeysville, but we serve the Baltimore Metro area, surrounding counties, and we are happy to help. And I'll be kicking off this presentation with just a quick market update of the Baltimore Metro area. And I'll give you some tips and where you can find more detailed and up-to-the-minute information on that. So most of you joined because you're wondering, what's the market like for buyers? Is the tide actually turning or starting to turn? So it seems from Bright MLS data, which is the listing service that agents here use, that Baltimore Metro inventory, meaning the number of homes on the market, is at its highest since June 2020. So that means there's a lot of homes on the market, but that number has not reached pre-COVID levels when there was a lot more homes on the market. And home prices, as you've probably seen, continue to rise in our Baltimore Metro area. Now, I looked at a survey of Bright MLS agents from back in April of 2025. And Bright MLS is the listing service where you list your home, where agents list your home. And it serves Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and West Virginia. So it's a wide swath. But there's a survey of agents in this area and just what they're seeing on the market. So in that area, they're seeing that about 40% of buyers who closed in 2025 only were looking for about less than a month. And that is up from only 20% looking for that small amount in 2024. So that seems like a short amount of time for 40% of the buyers got a home in a month. And 50% of buyers made an offer on a home, the one home that they ultimately purchased, and that is all. So they weren't making multiple offers and competing as much as in prior months and years to get that home. All right. Now, in that survey, approximately 40% of buyers who closed in early 2025 said they did have to make a compromise as to either location, home quality, price, one of the factors to get their home. And sellers are still not as much willing to offer closing cost assistance or repair credits, but they would negotiate on price, closing date, other terms that might make it a little more favorable for buyers. So that's still, scales are tipping in favor of the sellers in those areas. But in the Baltimore Metro area, the average days on market is about 10 now, and that's up from 8 days on the market in 2024, meaning that homes are sitting on the market a little, slightly bit longer, so that maybe buyers have a more negotiating power, at least slightly, with sellers. I'll give you a little snippet here. This is from Bright MLS, and the number of closed sales in May of 2025 was about 3,000, and that's pretty much on average, that it was for last year. And median sold price, so what the home sold for, was about 410,000 in the Baltimore Metro area. That's about the same as in May of 2024, a little down, but so that's what we're seeing, or a little up, excuse me, from May of 2024, which was 400,000. And year to date, so in the past year, the average home price is 385, and that's up from 2024 and was 375. So home prices, like I said, are going up. That's the big picture, still going up. Now, how do mortgage rates factor in? As we all know, mortgage rates have come down a little since early 2025, and they're continuing to inch down. But in that Bright MLS survey of agents, more than 80% of those agents surveyed said that their home buyers found it very easy or somewhat easy to qualify for a mortgage. So that's looking up. And 42% of these agents' clients who did stop looking for a while said they stopped due to high mortgage rates in 2025. But last year, about 60% of buyers who stopped looking did so for mortgage rates. So that reason, high mortgage rates, is less of a sticking point for buyers this year, although it's still there. So, you know, it seems like the tide is turning slightly for buyers. If we had a scale, the scales are still weighted in the seller's favor somewhat, but the buyers are tipping and making it less so and making it more favorable, at least in certain areas for buyers. Now, what do I think? Is now a good time to buy? Well, mortgage rates will likely drop in the coming months and years. They're going to continue to drop. Maybe not as to what we really would love them to be, but they are going down. But at the same time, home prices are still increasing, and there's still going to be this demand. As you see, home prices are always going up. We're not seeing with all these other factors them going down. So if you buy when the mortgage rates are high, as long as you can afford your interest rate and your monthly payments, everything is within your budget. If you buy when the mortgage rates are where they are now, get your foot in the door, you can refinance when the interest rates are more in your favor, they're lower. You know, the saying, buy the house, date the mortgage, is a cliche because it is true. So as long as, like I said, you have the budget to go for a certain mortgage rate right now, it is a good time to buy. There are factors in your favor in the Baltimore Metro area to become a buyer and get your home and start building equity now. You know, I gave you a little snapshot of the Bright MLS area and the Baltimore Metro market. And because you have kindly joined our webinar, you are subscribed to our email list where you'll get monthly market updates. But for more data, you can visit our website, loganwallarealestate.com. We have up-to-the-date market statistics. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and the links are right there. So right now, I'm just going to pause for a quick minute for any questions anyone might have on the market or what we're seeing for buyers. Do you see anything? No, I do not see any questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to my agent, Christina Vicaria, and she will kindly discuss what you can expect specifically from us, Logan Waller Realty, and what it takes for buyers to start in this market. Take it away, Christina.
Erin. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, thank you, Erin. And hi, everyone. My name is Christina Vicaria, and I've been an agent since 2015. I currently live in Baltimore City, which is my favorite place to kind of bring buyers and sellers into, but I also work in Baltimore County as well. And today, my hope is to kind of give you guys almost like some tips or some things to be thinking about before you start looking for a home. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first thing I help buyers figure out are their needs. And usually that falls into time frame, budget, and some other contingencies. So first thing I like to remind buyers is that your time frame, not just to move into your home, but also when we need to buy the home, since there's about a 30 to 35 day time to close on the property. So that's the first step, is how much time do we have? The second part is the budget, right? Which Erin kind of talked about before, and figuring out what the monthly mortgage payment is and the sales price of the home. And then sometimes buyers come into a transaction with contingencies, and a contingency is just something that the sale can be dependent on something, such as your ability to sell your first home, or your willingness to break a lease. So see, these are some of the things that we need to consider while we're planning our strategy for your home buying. And then, of course, most buyers already know where they want to live, right? Whether it's a zip code or it's near a radius of work or a school. So kind of figuring out where you want the property to be. And then the final piece would be, funnily enough, the final piece is the actual bones of the home, the size and the type. So next slide, please. So here's a nice little graphic. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but I would like you to focus on the bold parts to kind of give buyers a snapshot of the process. So the first part is planning the home search, which is kind of what I discussed on the first slide. Most buyers don't realize that they really need to speak to a lender first. A lender is really going to help you understand what you feel comfortable affording, right? They're going to tell you what you can afford in terms of the sales price, but realistically, you want to know what's your mortgage payment going to be and if that's something you're comfortable with, right? That's going to dictate all of the other pieces of location and home size, etc. So the first thing is the planning stage. The second thing would then be working with an agent and activating that home search. Aaron already listed MLS, which is the multiple list service that we use. All agents are inputting data into that database, and that is the most accurate information for details of a property. And that information does get disseminated into other sites such as Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, all of that. So the second step is to work with an agent to kind of filter out what are we looking for and where are we looking for it, and all of the little features, whether you want parking or a fence and all those things of that nature. The red, I like how it turns into red here because this is where it gets a little serious with we find a property and we have our pre-approval letter from a lender and now it's time to make the offer, right? And that is the start of domino effects of presenting an offer, which is what an agent helps you do, is creating an offer and also making sure that your offer is in line with market value, right? And so that's something that we help you decide. And then once your offer gets accepted, right, that's what we're all hoping for, is that your offer gets accepted. And now there's some terms of this contract that we need to execute. So as an agent, our job is to walk you through those negotiations. Some common negotiations are the home inspection, right? Once you go under contract, what repairs need to be done? Who's going to pay for those? Are we going to get a credit? Are we going to get them fixed? Some other things have to do with like HOA and what's allowed there and not. But our job as agents is to kind of walk you through those negotiations as they come and hoping to find a place where the buyer and the seller can meet. Once we get through that, which is usually about 2 weeks time from the time you get your offer accepted to the time that all of those negotiations are done, usually about the 2-week mark. As I mentioned earlier, it takes about 30 days to close, so you're halfway through. At that point, we're preparing to close, and what that means is we're getting the appraisal from the lender, we're getting that HOA condo packet, and it's really the lender's job at this point to kind of close out whatever details they need. I usually like to tell my buyers that's the time where we kind of sit and wait, and hearing nothing is good, but we also want to make sure that we're really responsive when the lender or a title company asks us for information. And then, of course, we're getting down a little lower to attending or closing. Here is where everything's pretty much set. The title company has prepared their work to bring the seller and the buyer together with the lender. And now we are just going to exchange funds and you're going to get your keys. And like I said, it takes about 30 days to get to that point. And then you finally move into that dark green color where you're moving into your own home. So that's kind of a snapshot of the process. Again, I like to highlight the little pink and red because that's usually where people start to get the most stressed out. Yellow's kind of fun and vibrant in this depiction, and then of course everybody wants to get to the green. So next slide, please. Okay, so kind of already talked about this a little bit, but how do we help? First of all, is we do have access to MLS, and that is how we are going to create a personalized home search for you. There's a lot of amazing features in that database where we can kind of, say, I don't want to buy a home that's before 1978, or I want a home that has 3.5 bathrooms. So getting you that information is crucial. And then the second bullet point is the buyer representation and agency. So in Maryland, it's a little bit of legal stuff here, but in Maryland, in a sales transaction, you need to have representation with the seller and the buyer, right? So you have a listing agent that's representing the seller, but we need somebody who's going to represent the buyer. the idea is you can't have one person represent two parties. So when you enter into a representation or agency agreement with our company or an agent, our job is to represent all of your interests in the negotiation. We do have a fiduciary responsibility to you, right? We have to keep our conversations confidential. I'm supposed to be giving you good advice. I'm supposed to be doing everything that's in the best interest for you in the transaction. That is really the most important part, is building that, having that relationship not only on paper, but kind of feeling that transparency and honesty with the person that you're working with. We'll go into that. There's another slide on that. But of course, our job is also to be experts in the market, right? We need to tell you what these market conditions are. Aaron kind of gave us like a great broad perspective to understand the Baltimore metro market. But we also are able to bring that more concretely into the subdivision that your home will be in, right? And what that price value will be. So that's kind of our job, is to kind of give you that so that you can really propose the best offer. We also manage the entire real estate transaction. So if you think about the last slide, we pretty much hold your hand the entire time. Our job is to manage those timetables. Our job is to make sure that you are fulfilling what you have agreed to in writing, and to make sure that the other parties are also doing what they're supposed to do for everyone to come to closing together and settle. And then finally, there are a lot of third parties that need to be involved in a transaction, whether that's the home inspection, some contractors, if you're on the selling side. I can't even think of the other ones right now. Title company, right? There's all these other third party services that are involved, and we do provide referrals of professionals that are reliable and are really going to get things done on time. So that's also good to have on your team. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one is, let me zoom this in a little bit. Okay, this is from the Maryland, you can see there, Maryland Realtors, which is part of our governing services here in Maryland. And it just goes to show you here, I want to focus on the client side and how it goes down. So a client here on the right side is someone who has entered into an agreement with a broker. So that means you want to buy a home and you hire us, and we go into a written relationship together, and there's a little hands holding together. Now in Maryland, you can either, like I said, have a relationship with a seller as a seller's agent, or you can have a relationship as a buyer's agent, which is in the yellow. There's the red that I'm not going to get into right now. I just want to focus on the blue and the yellow. And for the purpose of this webinar, mostly the yellow. And here it just says a licensed real estate broker or salesperson, in my case, is in a written brokerage agreement to represent the buyer in acquiring real estate or a lease. Okay. And so that's just, again, the law of making sure it's in writing who is representing who's who. And it really does protect the public. It really does, in my opinion. Next slide, please. Okay. This slide I put in here because this was a quick map to home buying from a lender's perspective. I said earlier in the presentation that buyers really do need to start with a lender to figure out what they need and what they can qualify for. So I'm going to run through these again. Again, it might be a little bit redundant, but I want you to think about this as you're moving through the process with a lender. The first step is to get pre-qualified. Okay, most people don't want to do this because it has to do with money. But I can tell you now that it's very easy, because most lenders now have something on their website that says, click this button and get pre-approved. It usually asks for very simple information to kind of get the ball rolling. And then after that, they kind of generate this letter that tells you you have something. You can qualify for something, which is step 2, getting pre-approved. They're going to verify your information. Here they're asking for W-2s, some pay stubs and things of that nature. I know that this is not fun to start your home buying process with, but it will help you in the long run because you really need to understand the numbers before I start showing you some houses. This letter that they do give you on step 2 is a hard check on your credit, and the letter lasts, I believe, about 90 days, right, Erin? Is it 90?
I think it depends on the lender, but it could be
Okay.
about 90 days.
Yeah, so it's about 90 days. So what I'm saying by that is that there is a time limit on this approval. Now, we do need this approval to submit an offer, right? You do need an approval to submit an offer. So this document you need regardless, but it does put you on a little time crunch. Notice that step 3 is where an agent comes in. Step 3 is where I come in and I help you find the home that you love and that you now want to go to step 4 and make an offer with. For the offer, like I said, you do need the pre-approval, you need the offer, and you'll also need an earnest money deposit, which is usually about 1% of the sales price. So if you've got a house worth, say, $400,000, you're going to want to have earnest money deposit of about $4,000. And what the earnest money deposit does is it's just showing good faith to the seller. I am very serious about your home. I want you to take this house off the market, list it as pending, because I want to buy it from you. And here's $4K so that you can hold. And of course, that money gets credited to you at the end of closing. Okay, so that's the other money piece here. Once your offer gets accepted, you move to step 5, which is now submitting and completing a formal loan application with your lender. And that is part of the terms of the contract. It happens pretty quickly. Again, mostly done online. Once your application gets submitted, we also need to get a home inspection because from a lender's standpoint, they want to know what kind of property they're going to buy, right? And so that's where the home inspection comes in and we have to negotiate that. Once that gets negotiated between you and the seller, we go to step 7, where the lending team will start processing all of your documentation. They will also order an appraisal that happens through the lender. Most of the times you're not going to hear if the appraisal is good. You're going to hear if it comes in under. But we haven't really seen that issue in the market in the last few years. I'll say that. So step 7 is processing, and then they pass it on to step 8, which is underwriting, where again, they're going to go through everything, scrutinize everything, ask you for everything. But you're just sitting there waiting, and your job is just to give the information. And then again, they have their step 9, which is similar, more underwriting, until they finally give us clear to close, which would be step 10. And we get to go to the title company and the funds get transferred and you get the keys and you're on your way to your new home. So again, this is more of a financial snapshot, a little bit of redundancy, but it is good to kind of visualize that there's 2 timelines to buying your home. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does this mean for you? I put here some next steps. We've got a lot of resources in this webinar that have been linked through the website, and I believe there's some other slides at the end of this that have some hyperlinks. If you are interested in buying a home within the next 6 months, next year, I highly recommend that you get in contact with the lender. We do have some lender referrals that we can offer to you. And then once you get that letter, you want to find an agent, and we hope that that company, that brokerage, is us. You want to get representation and have the earnest money deposit readily available, which we've kind of already talked about. And the 2 other things that you can start shopping for are the title company and the home inspector that you want to work with. If you don't have those, your agent we can refer people to you. But I do like to make sure that the buyer knows that they get to pick the title company and they get to pick the home inspector. And then finally, right, we got all that homework out of the way. We can start shopping for homes on the MLS and start touring houses. So those are the next steps. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide again are just some resources of our neighborhood guide. You notice the first one is taking us to our website, but just a neighborhood map of Baltimore. And then you've got Live Baltimore for Baltimore City residents. It just gives you some profiles of the different neighborhoods. And again, these are mostly for Baltimore City. Next slide, please. This one is applicable to city and county. Lots of times people want to know what the safety is of a place. So we give you those resources here, as well as the schools. I want to be honest about it, because of fair housing, we cannot give you that information. It's subjective, okay? So I can't tell you if it's safe at night, but you can drive by there and see if you feel safe by night. And I can also give you these resources through the county and the city about their crime maps, as well as information to the schools, making sure that you are in a jurisdiction that you want to be in. So that's kind of why we provide that information there for you guys to make those decisions. And then I think, do I have one more slide, or it might just be questions? Okay, questions. Any questions about any of the slides or the process or how to find your home, your dream home? Okay. No?
I don't see anything right now.
Well, if you do, you have our information to contact us, but I want to thank you for your time, and I hope to hear from you and work with you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Christina. That was a great presentation, very helpful. And I wanted to highlight one thing that now under Maryland law and in many states, after the big National Association of Realtors settlement, we are not permitted to show anyone a home without signing a buyer agency agreement.
Yes,
no
thank you for saying that.
Is required or is allowed. So whether you choose Logan Waller Realty or anyone else, I would first get set up with a lender and talk with an agent, sign a buyer agency agreement, then you can see homes. You have to do that in the right order. And because we're an attorney-led brokerage, we know the rules and we play by them. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yes,
Thank you. Also say, yep, our contact info is right here, our emails and phone numbers. And I'm going to stop sharing and just say thank you, everyone, for coming to the presentation. And we hope to see you again, and we hope to assist you in your home buying. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.